This is This is Two Grumpy Old Men. I'm Rich Garling, and this is.
Tim Bagwell,
I
and we're
hope
here.
everybody is doing fine. And Tim and I were just talking just a moment ago about a bunch of crazy things that are going on. And one of the things we happened to mention was, of course, obviously Chicago, and that, and what's going on. Yeah,
Unless you're
and
a
what.
name.
And what's going on there, and one of the things we were mentioning, perhaps people who have been reading my podcast or my blogs, have noticed that I'm a little upset with the party that I've been a member of since I was 18 years old. And I have to look at them and I'm thinking to myself, my God, this is supposed to be the party of the working people, and yet I live in a state, Illinois, which is a blue state, okay, and it's an at-will state, which basically means that, my employer can fire me at any time they want to without any reason whatsoever. Okay. Now, I don't know how the hell that supports workers, but they seem to think it does. And yet nothing changes with it. Okay, and
Yeah,
that and there's just been a bunch of different things that go on there where things are not necessarily in favor of the worker,
right.
at all.
Yeah, eh, you look at what the party still does. Now, see, I ran for Congress in 2004 and 2010, but I see some of the same things going on with the party when they have progressives running New York. Both AOC and Manami, as I say the name right, I don't know if I did, the mayor's race.
Uh-huh.
They ardently
Uh-huh.
oppose this change all the way up to Congress. Why the hell is Congress involved? Why is Jeffries involved in support of or against the mayor, the progressive in the mayor's race, and this is across the country. So that when you remember that we were supposed to, all us Democrats were supposed to run, slightly anti-abortion, slightly for the churches. We had to supposedly step to the right all the time when many of us
Oh yeah.
were we were. I'm doing this wrong way. Left. Downstate people, downstate Democrats, and these are people. So like in 2000, can I talk about 2004 for a minute? 2004. In 2004, the bunch of us that ran mostly downstate, actually all the way to Naperville and then all the way downstate. Some Chicagoans include Naperville as downstate.
Well, Naperville
No,
used to be considered the sticks at one time.
right, right. But we were some of the minutia, some of the weeds that the people may not be aware of, is that there in Illinois, at least, there is a endorsement period from the unions comprised of two chances in March and in August, okay, of the election year. So you're better to have a union endorsement in March than in August because that gives you all that time, March, April, May, June, July, it gives you 6 months to raise money from the unions because the unions don't want to talk to you if you're not endorsed by the party, by the AFL-CIO. Excuse me. You okay, Rich?
Yeah, I'm fine. Keep talking. I'm trying to do something here while you're
Right.
talking. Keep talking.
The So what happened was is that and again more into the weeds. Each of the congressional district has a union committee that endorses a candidate for our Congress. Each one of them. In downstate Illinois,
Uh-huh.
that was all controlled by LIUNA, the Labor's International Union. All right. And the head of that union at the time, God rest his soul, I won't name his name, would go around talking to all the Democrats about how he's a big Democrat, yet no endor- his commit his LIUNA could controlling the downstate COPEs, what they call committees on political education, controlling those entities, held his thumb down on early endorsements of the Democrats who had no one. They were not challenging Democratic candidates. We were out alone. We had to be in the primary, but we had no primary challengers. So it wasn't as if they had to choose between Democrats, but they chose not to give us money, chose not to give us an endorsement. Why the hell? What's up, unions? When you have candidates, progressive or otherwise, because you didn't know us that well, you didn't know how progressive
Yeah.
we were. But when we all got together, we found out
Well,
that
you were the
we were
only Democrat running down there.
the only Democrat running in the 19th at the
Yeah.
time.
But you were the
My friend
only.
Steve Waterworth was running against Ray LaHood. I can't remember who all was running against too. some of those congressmen are now gone. David Gill ran many times. Dr. David Gill ran against, I forget, although they redid the districts during his time period. So he ran against at least two people. And Gloria Anderson up in Naperville, what was the third at that time? Now the third's way downstate by the number of things. But yeah, we got like zero support. We had a few meetings, maybe had a meeting with some of Durbin's people, nice, but nothing came of it. Had a meeting with Jan Schakowsky. They told me, oh, we'll see about contribution of $2,000, and that never happened. We decided against that. Her staffer told me.
$2,000. That was it. $2,000. That was it.
Yeah, and we didn't get that, and when we didn't get that, So here's the thing. Glad she's retiring. Happy she's retiring. Democrats who don't tell a Democratic candidate you're going to do something for them and not do it if you're an elected Democrat.
Oh.
Yeah, which makes you a liar. And this sounds like old grievances, but 2010 it was understandably worse because I didn't get I did real well. I did 90,000 votes in 2004 and 60,000 in 2010, but different years, different election years.
Oh yeah. Remember when I ran for state rep? When I ran for state rep in 08, and I could barely get a word out of Madigan, at the time. Here I'm running against an established Republican, Mark Bobian, and I didn't get any money whatsoever. The only thing I got from him was some legal help to keep me on the ballot. That was it. Other than that, I didn't hear boo from him. And the thing was that here I am, the only Democrat running against this guy. And I couldn't help but get the sense that the whole reason they weren't supporting me was because Bobian was a known entity, and I wasn't.
Exactly.
And but yet I would have increased the majority in the state house, had I won the election. Now I came up with 42% of the vote, which was okay. I mean, better than any Democrat had done prior. Far better. Most of the time when they ran against him, they were doing somewhere around in the neighborhood of 20 to 25% if they were lucky. Okay, I came out and I got 42%, and then after Bobian passed, the Democrats have been running very close races each and every year. And this next election, we stand a good chance because the last election in that particular district, it was basically 50 to 49.
Yeah, I think I was just saying this may sound like old news to some of our listeners, but the thing is that this is actually very pertinent because you can't trust the party, you can't trust the establishment.
Well, it's still going on.
Yeah, still going on.
It hasn't changed any.
Yeah, not appreciate. Well, the people have changed it in some cases in New York primarily, and I think we're seeing Newsom's going to have to be left where he was because of what's happened in California. But the support of I'll give you another example. When they redistricted before the 2010 race, they put I can't remember his name. They put Shimkus, who was my ongoing opponent, and another Republican in the same district. Good for you. And then Shimkus bitched at Costello, the Democrat. And Costello, the Democrat, helped to get the district line moved again so that Shimkus was in his old district and didn't have to run against the Republican. Now, the sad truth of that, and I can't remember his name, but the Republican he would have been running against.
Now we want to redistrict.
The Republican he would have been running against retired.
Right. So now
it was the biggest bunch of bullshit in support of a downstate Republican.
Now they want to. Now they're threatening. But now they're threatening to redistrict. Okay, and the whole idea being that they I'm not real sure where they think Illinois is going to be able to grab another seat, and that is just incredible.
I think, but the only thing they can do is to put Republicans in the same district.
Yeah,
make Republicans fight it out so that a viable Democrat might have a chance. That's about the only thing I can see. I know we talked about the stringy spaghetti coming out of Chicago and going down.
If anybody's good at gerrymandering, it's the state of Illinois.
We do,
And,
we do have
yeah,
I
well,
mean,
hey, there's what's that old saying here in Illinois? We've got the best politicians money can buy.
yeah, that's true everywhere. We just get this, the gold standard, so to speak.
Well,
Sorry,
well,
Chairman
think of
Madigan.
well, a lot of people don't seem to realize, if they think about it. I mean, where else, where else in the history of the country can you sit there and reverse a river so that all the sewage is going away from your city and
I'm
going
sorry,
downstream?
Rich. This is a sore topic for me. You know where that went, right? It
Oh, I
went
know
to St.
exactly
Louis.
where it went.
When I went to St. Louis, we didn't sue in time. St. Louis dragging its butt early on, not being aware of what was being done against it. And yeah,
Am- is it my fault that you folks in Missouri have piss poor politicians? you know,
exactly.
and
Exactly.
you know, oh
Yeah,
my God.
Mike Kehoe says we must be in step with the politics of Washington. We must redistrict. They can redistrict. They're trying to get Cleaver. Yeah. So Missouri is another case, and I think they're going to be surprised maybe at some of the things that are going to happen. But in Illinois, though, just like what they did in Missouri is put Emmanuel Cleaver in a purplish district. He still has his strip of Kansas City. Then they reach all the way to the middle of Missouri to put red voters in, right?
Right.
And so they want to knock out one congressman. They can't possibly knock a St. Louis. St. Louis has enough population. The St. Louis County has enough Democrats that they can't knock out the St. Louis Democrat probably
Yeah.
ever.
So they can't get rid of all of them. Right. Right.
They can't get
Right.
rid of all of
And and here's the whole story about redistricting. When you get down to it, Tim, the Republicans are doing this in a desperate effort to nullify the people's vote so that they don't lose control of the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate because they know that if they came out and actually told the people of the country what it is that their actual plan is, which if you go read the 2025 document, you
them.
understand it. They don't want to campaign on that. They don't want to tell them all of that. They'd rather just simply redistrict,
Yeah,
or to try to make it so that it's difficult for people to vote,
right.
and everything. There was a thing in, where was it? North Carolina, I believe it was. They came to an agreement with the Department of Justice so that people who had registered to vote, when they go into the polling places now, instead of them being removed from the rolls, from the voting rolls, okay, they now can go into and get a ballot at the polling place, and all they got to do is bring in an identification that shows that, hey, this is who I am. I'm a properly registered voter, and that because otherwise they were going to start pulling hundreds of thousands of people off the
Yeah,
voting rolls
right.
randomly. They didn't care,
Yeah,
and the Democrats there, fought back and said, no, 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 this ain't happening,
right.
and
Right. And
that, and
even the ID law is restricted for some people, for some homeless people, for some people that are otherwise incapacitated from taking care of having a right, an official ID,
oh yeah,
and
oh yeah.
they
No,
restrict.
my father-in-law's one person. Yeah, he because of the fact that he eventually decided not to go renew his license because he's 93 years old. All right.
Right,
So 2 years ago he decided not to renew his license, but we had to take him in so that he could get a valid ID
right,
and
right.
that. And now we got to take him back in because that valid ID, is doesn't have the correct. It has his old Elmhurst address on there, so we got to correct that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so
So yeah,
it's kind of crazy. And then what else? So what else? We were talking about Chicago, right?
right.
And the fact that it's interesting how Trump is threatened to bring in the troops. I think we pretty much know that he's going to have ICE in there. Okay, and that. But as far as the troops go, he keeps threatening, but yet nothing's in the works just yet. And
Well,
what I got a kick out of too was the building that. See, I had worked at Great Lakes, and the building that they're putting ICE into was a building that basically got shut off because it's old and decrepit, and they're going to put them in there now anyway.
representative of His Highness Trump. It's old and decrepit.
Yeah. Exactly, exactly.
Exactly.
And that,
Well,
and there's another thing too. You know, well, I'm sorry, I'm kind of on a rant here. I apologize, Tim.
I was ranting
But
you.
here's another thing. What?
Your turn to
At
rant.
any rate, okay. So the interesting thing is that, and I put this as a post on Facebook this morning, in that, and I had said it. You and I both, I think, said it back in 2015. That the whole reason why, Mitchell decided to hold back on approving Garland for the Supreme Court was because what they wanted to do was to stack the Supreme Court in their favor,
Right.
so that just in case they lost control of Congress,
They
and
have.
we of course would try to fix the mess that they created, in the nation. They would take it to the courts and hopefully win each time. So what do we see happening today? Wow, lo and behold, Trump is being told, by a lower federal court and by the international court, by the way, that his tariffs are illegal. So
Yeah.
what does he do? He runs to the Supreme Court right off the bat. Now, here's the thing that's happening with the Supreme Court is that there are so many cases that he's running to them with that to make a decision on it would take forever because the Supreme Court works slowly, just like any other court does.
Yep.
The wheels of justice grind ever so slowly, and so they're going to sit there with the shadow docket. In which case, what happens is that each of the members of the court scan real quick what the case is about, and they kind of take this initial little vote and go, "Well, how do you feel about this?" And then they use that as to make an official decision without explanation.
Right.
And so he knows that if he swamps them with the case after case after case, that's what's going to happen because they can't handle all of them. They're not
Right.
built to do that.
Right.
And
And when they make too many of these bad decisions, they're just they're accumulating a loss of their own political capital eventually.
yes,
I mean,
exactly.
their legitimacy, which is already gone for at least half the country, their legitimacy continues to deride. They deride their own. They just go ahead and do it.
That's right.
So
That's
you
right.
know,
They're basically shooting themselves in the foot, and cutting their own throat.
If we go back to the National Guard for a moment. Okay, so here's the
Yeah.
problem. One of the problems with the National Guard, because they talk about a nationwide police force, but one state at a time. There's only 500,000 people in the National Guard nationwide, and the largest one is 22,000 from the information I saw is in. Who has the largest National Guard with 22,000?
California,
Texas. California's second.
Texas.
Texas.
Oh,
And
Texas.
I
Really?
think New York is third, and then Illinois is fourth. And a whole bunch of states
Oh,
are like
so
6,000.
wait a minute. So what is it? Is Texas first, and then California,
Yeah,
and then New
yeah,
York, and then Illinois?
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So the thing about that, well, in Texas, you got hurricanes, you got tornadoes, you have probably the longest border with any country. Okay, so
Right.
okay, twenty-two
And they freeze
thousand.
to death. They freeze to death in the winter, and their electricity gets shut off because they didn't protect it correctly.
They have all kinds of reasons to have large national guard,
Yeah, we'll
but
send the National Guard out. They'll provide electricity to everybody.
yeah. So you can't stretch you can't stretch 500,000 people across 350 million people. It's like it just dawned on me what the movie Gandhi, Ben Kingsley is meeting with the British elite governors of India, and the governors ask one of the lead governors or the viceroy, I guess, says, "Is it that do you think we're just gonna walk out and leave?" And he says, "That's exactly what you're going to do, because
That's right.
100,000 Englishmen cannot tell 300 million Indians what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If we
Exactly.
if you
Hey,
protest peacefully, we expect you to walk out. And this is the thing with half a million. And the National Guard is not, for National Guard members listening, sorry, but it's not an elite corps.
yeah.
It's
No, and
not
they
an elite.
and they know that. And they know that. And I feel I really feel for these guys because I can't say for certain, but I'm thinking when I when I worked at Great Lakes Naval Base, okay, I was just a contractor there. I've never been in the military myself, but every one of those guys who were lifers, they were the standing military, and every one of them to a T said that there's several things that they're taught. One of them is your devotion to the U.S. Constitution. You swear an oath to that Constitution that you will defend it, from all enemies. Okay.
Mhm.
Second thing is that they're told and they're drilled into their heads that you do not have to obey an illegal order.
Right.
It's that simple. And so and while they may not necessarily like it, there are lawful orders out there that they would disagree with, but they have to obey them. But if it's an unlawful, illegal order, they don't have to obey it. In fact, it's their duty not to obey it. And these guys live by that, to a T, and everything, which means that the guys in the National Guard are all sitting there, and these guys are just average Joes, they're average citizens out there, and everything, and they're all looking at this and going, "What the hell are we doing?" Particularly the guys in D.C. You saw the pictures of the guys in D.C. They're out there raking leaves. What the hell
Yeah.
is that? you know, really?
Yeah.
We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, they're local. So
uh,
we'll give them credit. Those are local. It's been local. It's hard to believe, but it was the California Guard that Trump activated to go into L.A. He didn't bring in foreign troops. As Pritzker points
right,
out, they are foreign troops in terms of the law. They're
right.
not the state actors of the state of Illinois or state of California. They are Texas, and yeah, I'm not sure every governor is eager to send their. Well, there were four Republican governors that offered up D.C. It was Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee. I forget what the fourth one was. Not Kentucky. That's a Democrat governor. There was a fourth state that offered to. I don't know if they did or not. I heard that Georgia sent 75 people. Probably to handle logistics or something. So, Rich, are you okay? You're frozen.
Okay. So,
Oh, there you go. You were
continue on.
frozen. You were frozen for a moment after I said I
Yes.
told you about the
Yes.
Georgia
Yes.
Guard and there's
Yes.
25 members doing logistics.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah. I'll
couldn't
cut
tell.
it out. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah. You were both. You were frozen. I was frozen. The connection was lousy. So I'll
Yeah,
cut
yeah,
that out of there. Don't worry.
yeah.
Yeah. I'll cut that out later. Don't worry.
As,
And,
as
but
grumpy old men.
one thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be
It's our
surprising.
old
It wouldn't
age.
be surprising.
Yes.
But
Now, one of the things I mentioned too, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a guy out there by the name of Mavawala, okay, and he lives in Oregon,
yeah.
and I believe it's Spokane he lives in. No,
Uh,
Spokane, Washington. Excuse me, Spokane,
yeah.
Washington. My apologies. And this gentleman served in the U.S. Army. He was in Iraq and in Afghanistan. He has a bunch of medals and everything, and he and a few other veterans decided they were going to go over and protest ICE and what they were doing, and arresting immigrants and all this sort of stuff. And in particular, they knew some of these immigrants that they were arresting, and they formed a line at one point, locking arms, that kind of thing, and everything. But apparently, something happened elsewhere in the area that he wasn't present at. They arrested a whole bunch of people for trying to obstruct official duties and all that kind of, which I find kind of ironic, considering the fact that January 6th it was, these people were guilty of exactly that, and they all got pardoned, and all that. But yet we get arrested and everything, and it's not likely we'll get pardoned, by President Bone Spurs, and all this. But anyway, they arrested him on conspiracy a month after the event.
Conspiracy. Because he made
Conspiracy. Oh yeah, no. What they did when they arrested him, and here, hang on a second, I'm gonna bring up the
Oh,
article
you're
here that I wrote. Yeah, I got an
yeah,
article that I wrote about it. And basically it asks the question of, or it says, when dissent becomes conspiracy, it's a dangerous shift in government tactics. So basically, what they're doing is that, well, let's put it this way: they could try to arrest you and me because we're having this conversation, okay? And they can try to claim that it's a conspiracy of
we're
sorts.
inciting people. We're inciting people's anger.
Exactly, exactly, and all that. And we may not even be directly tied to any of the stuff that's going on, but they're going to try to arrest us because we're doing this. Now,
Yeah.
I tried to have a conversation with the ACLU, who I support.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
all right,
Yeah. Me
all
too.
right, and I've been a member of the ACLU for eons and all this. But when I when I described this particular situation to them, they turned around and they were like, "Oh, well, they couldn't answer the question." And all
Right.
this. And so finally I just cut him off and I was like going, okay, you're obviously not going to do anything, here. I can tell that. Because my thinking is this, is that if something happened to say you and me,
Who do you
okay,
call?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, knowing full well that we couldn't afford an attorney, and all this. So I would be looking to groups like the ACLU to help us legally, to
Yeah.
fight this thing, because I would think it would be in their best interests. Because quite honestly, yeah, our civil rights are being violated, in that, and especially our right to free speech. I can sit there. I'm not allowed to disagree with what he's doing with ICE,
Right.
or what he's doing with Homeland Security and the FBI and all those guys. Bullshit.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. This. Yeah. And he's a freaking loose cannon. Trump is a loose cannon, and he was talking about New Orleans, which I guess he has to prove he's a. If you're going to slap a red state, you would choose Louisiana. You would
Oh,
choose
sure.
New
Yeah,
Orleans,
but
so that yeah, because
yeah,
they're
and
so
then
bad.
and then you can use that. You could use that as a template, for all the rest of the cities, that because it's like, hey, it works so well here, you know. Or DC. DC supposedly in 3 weeks the crime rate's dropped.
Because
I'm
people,
like, really?
yeah,
you know?
no, they're measuring that. How do you measure that? How do you measure an actual drop in crime over a 3 week period after the introduction of the National Guard? How is that? How do you measure what's going on? There's no,
Well,
difficult to measure.
while you're measuring that part, measure how much business has dropped.
Right.
you know?
Yeah. You go to a
And,
restaurant. Well, the
and
ones
that
that are down,
because
no one's
there's
going. Tourists
yeah,
aren't showing
and
up.
that well, here's the thing. We could now go to Washington as a tourist and know full well that we wouldn't have to worry about finding a seat in a restaurant. you know,
Exactly.
because
Exactly.
nobody there. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's nobody
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
This is
Mm.
all the commentators are saying it, and all the reporters are saying. I think the all the ones on the why what am I saying? The major media isn't really saying this, but we're on a dangerous downward spiral towards even further along to fascism. The one hope is his health, and one hope. There's several hopes. One is his health. One is the realization that you can't deploy 500,000 poorly trained, moderate, not you can't deploy
Well, they're not
500,000.
trained. They're
You
not
can't
trained for what you're trying to get them to do.
right, and you don't have enough of them, and you don't have enough of them.
Right.
And yeah, there may be new recruits that are going to say this is bullshit. Some of the old timers, they're waiting for retirement out of the guard. That's understandable, but how far do you go? You know, and yeah, it seems like the Texas thing is almost a revenge for the Civil War because I don't know if you know that Illinois was basically the Illinois units were the ones who defeated Texas. Yeah,
so now they're pissed off and they want to get even.
right,
Isn't that?
right, right,
I always
right.
I always find that funny.
I don't remember which was the Clint Eastwood, not the Clint Eastwood. Yeah, I hate it when I love the movies, but I hate the actor. The politics. I don't hate Clint Eastwood. He is politics, but one of the westerns, one of the Civil War westerns, and somebody asked him where he is from, and he said Illinois. I'm like, yeah, beat the
There you
South,
go. Yeah, yeah.
beat the
Well, isn't it?
Confederacy, beat the Confederacy, beating the
Yeah,
Confederacy there.
yeah.
So
Well, you see,
yeah,
yeah,
the I don't think. I wonder when he spews this out of his mouth using Texas forces in Illinois that Abbott's going, what? What
and
crap?
for, and for,
You know, you
and
keep
for these
asking me
guys
for,
to,
you keep asking me for shit, and how much do you want? You know, I'm giving you your congressional districts, which we didn't do very well. And then well, you embarrassed us nationally because you're covering all the coverage of the Democrats leaving the state, and
yeah.
then now you want my National Guard to go to Illinois. You know,
Now, now
are we,
I learned.
are we at the edge of hurricane season? What's the deal on that? I don't know. So,
Oh, the hurricane season won't end until like what the end of into October or something like that. So it's got like another 6 or 7 weeks left to go.
all right.
And by the way, my wife told me, and I'm don't fully understand it yet, but my understanding is that in order for the National Guard troops to get paid for a full month's pay for deployment, they have to be out there at least 30 days. Otherwise, they get paid, I believe it's a half a month. I got to look that up and got to verify it. So don't, it's not gospel. But my understanding is that what Trump is doing is that on the 29th day, they swap troops out so
Oh,
that
that
these
pisses
guys
me
don't
off.
get the full, yeah,
That pisses
they
me off.
don't get the full pay, and everything. And you're like going, what the, you really?
So
What a chintzy son of a bitch.
usually command. Okay, so here's what happened. My brother was in the U.S. Navy during Vietnam, but didn't he never stepped foot on Vietnamese soil. He was on a
Right.
ship,
He's
right? But
on a ship.
they were in Da Nang. But what they would do is on their trips between Japan and Singapore is that they would take in the war zone. All right. They're just going down the China South China Sea and they take in the war zone. Okay. And they get paid combat duty. Okay.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
command is trying to get their people paid more.
Yeah.
This is command trying to get their people paid less for more work. A
Right.
typical Republican military, you know,
Yes. Yes.
typical Republican.
Yes.
Screw,
Yeah.
screw, screw the line because the Bonesburg guy, your commander Bonesburg, demands that you leave now so that we don't have to pay you a full month.
Well, isn't that like George W. Bush when they invaded Iraq and all this? Did he use active duty troops to do that? People who are trained in actual combat and everything? No, he sends the National Guard over there. He activates them and sends the National Guard, which, by the way, was the very thing he used to keep out of Vietnam when he was younger. He used that so he didn't have to go over to Vietnam, but then switches it when he's sending people over to Iraq, and it's like, really?
Yeah,
Boy, what a
yeah,
nice guy.
yeah,
I
yeah,
can use it, but you can't.
yeah.
Kind
So
of thing.
if we can cap off here a little bit, I think we're going to running out of time. But with Chicago, it's somewhat like the opposite of what it was in the '60s. In the '60s, you know, Daley wanted his big time in the spotlight with the convention, and it did not go well. His police rioted against the demonstrators who were demonstrating peacefully. But now all the way up to the governor, we have the support of the government to resist the federal government's intrusion into a state.
Oh
You
yeah,
know. Well,
yeah.
by the
But
way, we were in state rights one time.
yeah, back in Chicago in '68, okay, it was the governor who called in the National Guard to get
Uh,
control of things in Chicago. Okay, it wasn't the feds. They
right.
had no, they didn't call them in. It was our own state, doing it, and we had to get, total.
Johnson.
So, yeah, real totally different situation going on over there. And so, folks, what's happening now, though, is we got the feds calling in our National Guard, our kids, our troops into Chicago to quell violence that's down 30, 40%, over the last year,
Mhm.
from what I understand. Yeah, are there
Mhm.
still killings going on? Yeah, but I believe the police department can handle, what's going on there. What needs to happen is we need to get control of the guns. There are just too many guns out there in too many hands. You got kids that are sitting there with the AK-15s or 40, whatever the heck they call them, AR-15s, okay, and that they don't need to have.
And here's the
It
funny
is.
thing about that. I would say one funny thing about that, and as my friend Steve points out, my downstate Democrat, Steve Waterworth, is that that's exactly what the Republicans want. That's
Is what?
exactly, they will, the Republicans would start gun confiscation. Guess where?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the Blue
You know,
City. That's where it would
and
begin.
it,
It would be nationwide. They want, we need to confiscate guns in Chicago, New York, LA, because they're out of control. See, out of control, out of
yeah, they
control,
don't
out
want
of
them.
control,
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
control.
No,
Nothing gets out of
no.
control.
Yeah, you know why
All
they
right.
want to do it. You know, in the end, you know why they want to do it. They want to do it because they don't want these people shooting at them when they're in there with the National Guard. Can you see that the Texas National Guard comes up here? We're going to gain control, but all these people got guns out there, and they're not afraid of using them.
Exactly.
you know,
Well, actually, I think they are afraid of using them, but not in an
yeah,
organized way is the problem. So,
yeah,
well,
you know, God. Well,
there-
I hear you. That was a good rant.
thank you,
you know,
everyone.
but
Thank you, everyone,
yeah.
for, who have signed in, who will be listening to our podcast. I'm Tim Bagwell,
I'm Rich Carling,
and
and
for
this
Chief
is Two
Government
Grumpy Old Men.
Officer, until next
All
time.
righty, folks. Have a good day. Ooh. Okay, I got to end the session for all of us. My stop button went away again.
Oh,
God bless it. Why does that happen?
want me to leave?